Could you all please rise for the Right Honourable the Lord Mayor of Perth, Mr Basil Zempilas. You let me get that.
I wasn't looking at you. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the City of Perth November 2023 agenda briefing session. I'm going to formally declare the session open at exactly 5 p.m. I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet, the Whadjuk Noongar people of Western Australia, and pay my respects to elders past and present. It is a privilege to be standing on Whadjuk Noongar land. CEO, while we're all up, could I ask you to recite the prayer, please?
Almighty God, under whose providence we hold responsibility for this city, grant us wisdom to understand its present needs, foresight to anticipate its future growth, and grace to serve our fellow citizens with integrity and selfless devotion. And to thee be all blessing and glory forever. Amen.
Thank you, everybody. Please be seated. And as I can see into the future, I reckon Councillor Gonsalves will walk in right about now. There we go. Incredible. Welcome. Thank you, Councillor Gonsalves. Councillor Gonsalves has been on Wolga training and did advise us that he might be 30 seconds or so late. So welcome, Councillor Gonsalves. And with that, we will just firstly tell everybody that in accordance with Council Policy 1.4, this meeting is being live streamed and the recording will be made available on the city's website following the meeting. Very popular, the recordings are, especially when people come in and make frog noises, as we know. Item 3, attendance. In attendance today are Deputy Lord Mayor Clyde Bevan, Councillor Raj Doshi, Councillor Brent Fleeton, Councillor Liam Gobbett, who's gesticulating in certain directions that are not obvious to me. Somebody, trying to come in? Okay. Our staff out there ready to assist. Conrad's up on his feet. He'll have this fixed in a flash. Councillor David Gonsalves, Councillor Victor Coe is not with us. Here's an apology. Councillor Catherine Leeser, Councillor Bruce Reynolds. In addition, I welcome the Chief Executive Officer to my left, other officers to my left and right, and any members of the public or media in attendance, which we can see quite a few. That's excellent. Welcome, everybody. No elected members are currently on an approved leave of absence, and I will remind councillors to please submit any applications for a leave of absence prior to next week's ordinary council meeting. So we're going to move now to item number 4, that's Lord Mayor's announcements. And I do have something I'd like to say about the Safe Night space. And it goes as follows. The City of Perth is proud of the contribution it made through its $4 million investment in the Safe Night space, run out, as many people will know, of the Rod Evans Centre in Hay Street, East Perth. The Safe Night space was never intended as a long-term solution to homelessness, but it did provide a critical interim service for women who required basic shelter and safety. It also demonstrated that this model could work, and it was hoped that others in the community might adopt similar approaches, taking our lead. The Safe Night space was supposed to close in May of this year, but at the February Ordinary Council meeting, Council voted to extend the Safe Night space operation for a further 6 months to meet the need and until the state government was able to open a new crisis accommodation centre in West Perth and to give more time for other alternative arrangements to be made. It is important to note 12 months ago, I informed the Premier of the day that the Safe Night Space 2-year trial was due to end in May of this year. Homelessness Minister John Carey was also in attendance at that meeting. I asked Premier McGowan to consider taking over the funding of the operation. Big point. He declined. In February of this year, Council confirmed the Safe Night space would close on November 30. Everybody was given ample notice this closure was coming, and the city intended to return the Rod Evans Centre to community use as requested by our community. Since October, the city has been working with community groups interested in occupying the space. An initial call for registrations of interest resulted in 6 submissions for a variety of community services, including in the areas of education, community, arts and religion, and more have been received this week. So despite me first raising the closure of the Safe Night space with state government 12 months ago, and that decision being confirmed in this chamber in February, at 6 p.m. last Friday night, 9 months later, and just 2 weeks before the closure, I received a letter from Minister Carey saying the state government was now prepared to provide funding to keep the centre operating. That offer came at the 11th hour. Community had long ago been informed that the Rod Evans Centre, as made clear at the outset of the 2-year trial, would be returning to community use. It's what our community told us they wanted. Once some minor maintenance has been completed beyond November 30, the Rod Evans Centre will return to community use. We'll move on now to disclosures of interest, and that is item number 5. CEO, have any disclosures been received today?
Yes, Lord Mayor, the following interests have been disclosed. Councillor Liam Gobbett disclosed an impartiality interest in item 12.2 as he attended the opening of the Strange Festival as the city's representative, Lunar New Year's festivities as the city's representative, Tarmac West 2023 awards presentation as the city's representative, and Buddha's Birthday and Multicultural Festival as the city's representative.
What was the Lord Mayor doing was the question, I would think. Yeah. Is that all of them, is it? Oh, it's all from Councillor Gobbett?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I did go to some events, don't worry. Item 6, public participation. 6.1 is public questions. So 6 and 6.1 public questions. Public question time will be held at the ordinary council meeting next week. And governors, while you're here, I might just ask you to help me remind everybody of our rules relating to questions being asked at the public question time at our ordinary council meeting next week, and for every ordinary council meeting for that matter.
Through the chair, the portal on the city's website will lead you. There is an application form on there for members of the public to give us their questions before the meeting. Questions received 24 hours or before that will be read aloud at the meeting and answered where possible at the meeting, and those that receive less than 24 hours will be listed and acknowledged at the meeting, not necessarily read aloud, and will be answered in the minutes to that meeting.
Okay, and so to be clear on that, the reason that the 24 hours is in there is to give our administration the opportunity to fully consider the question and the responses. The last thing anybody wants to do is give an answer on the fly. And so the reason those rules and regulations are there governing public question time, which everybody knows about, is to give you the best opportunity to get the best answer. If we get them less than 24 hours, where time does not permit, they will be taken on notice and will be answered in the minutes, which will be public a day or two later, and everybody will have the opportunity to read the same full answer to the question. I got that right, Governors? Thank you very much. 6.2 is deputations, and CEO, I know we have some tonight.
Yes, Lord Mayor, we have received 6 deputations as follows. 1 deputation relating to item 12.1, major events and festivals sponsorship 2023-24, Oz Cycling Limited, and 4 deputations relating to item 12.2, council report, event sponsorship 2023-24, round 2, and 1 deputation relating to item 12.3, council report, economic development sponsorship 23-24 program, AOG Energy and Skull International Australia 109 National Assembly.
Thank you, CEO. So, welcome everybody, and great to have so many of you here giving deputations. It's an important part of the service that is offered here. We love hearing from community, and we welcome your attendance tonight. Can I please remind everybody there's a 5-minute limit for deputations. We run the clock, and I will give you a warning at about 4 minutes, or a bit of a check on how your time's going. We'll ask you to wrap it up at 5 minutes if you're still going. So I'm now going to invite Kip Kaufman, representing Oz Cycling, who are speaking for the recommendation in item 12.1 to please come forward. Is Kip with us tonight? Is anybody else from Oz Cycling with us tonight? Okay, that's how it goes. Let's move then. Is it we're not thinking someone's out the back? No. Okay. Let's go to deputation number 2, and I'm inviting Ross and Jan Tapper, representing Tarmac Events WA, who are speaking for the recommendation in item 12.2 to please come forward. Is it Ross coming forward? Hello, Ross. Good evening to you. If you could give us your name and your address, and then 5 minutes will begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Ross Tapper, I'm the Event Director of Tarmac Events WA, 15 Coates Avenue, Baldivis. 2024 will be the 20th anniversary of Targa West. We started in 2005 with no idea of where we would end up, and we've been very fortunate to have the support of City of Perth for the past 19 years, and hopefully we can continue to do so for years to come. We started with one event, a 4-day tarmac rally that started in Forest Place. We now run over 10 events a year, which run from Albany to Pemberton, Bunbury, Perth Motorplex, and maybe Midland next year. Our 4-day Targa West has undergone a number of challenges along with everyone else. We jumped and changed our events during COVID, but we're still able to keep going. Then, as I've explained previously, due to fatalities in Tasmania, Motorsport Australia put a pause on tarmac rallying throughout the country while they had a review. Even though many of the recommendations were do it the same as Targa West, they still didn't allow us to keep running our event. To keep faith with the City of Perth and Healthway, we ran major promotional parts of the event as rally sprints and kept that side of events growing, and particularly on Langley Park. In around 2019, the city's events team asked us to dream big and to put on a bigger event than what we have been doing. We've done that very successfully with more cars and more activities on Langley Park than we've ever had before. But in doing so, the cost associated with running the event has increased accordingly. To keep the event running, we have changed sanctioning bodies from Motorsport Australia to the Australian Autosport Alliance, known as AASA. After running Targa West for 18 years, Motorsport Australia has not come to our event once. AASA has supported our events in September this year and came along to support us, and they're here this weekend for an event we're running in Bunbury. But in doing so, that we should also change our name from was Targa West to Tarmac Events WA, so we're not associated with the Targa name, which is connected to Tasmania. AASA have guaranteed they will support our 4-day Tarmac West event in 2024. For the past 10 years, we've used Langley Park and the Terrace Road car park with the City of Perth and the City of Perth parking being as separate identities. Originally, the car park was done as a contra sponsorship arrangement for promotion of the CPP. Then we went into a cash arrangement with our cash sponsorship increased, but we paid for the hire of the car park. This year we applied for $100,000 for support due to the ever-increasing costs, but also to cover the cost of the car park. In 2023, the hire of the car park was reduced due to the free parking on a Sunday, which helped substantially. The recommendation for 2024 is just under $50,000, which leaves us well short being able to run the event. Our options now are to discontinue with the City of Perth and move the event to another location and to keep running the rest of the 4-day event. This is not an option that we wish to do. Or have the funding increased to a level where we can cover the majority of our expenses, which we estimate will be around for $150,000, and that's just within the City of Perth part of the event. Or remove the radio promotion, which we do on 96 FM, which is $20,000, and naturally this would reduce the number of people who will attend the event. Or with the City of Perth waiver their fees for the hire of Murray Street Mall, Forest Place, Langley Park, and the Terrace Road car park. The rubbish removal, which on Langley Park is all done by 1800 Got Junk. And we got charged for extra people in Forest Place, and that meant that we had to pay for the removal of extra rubbish in Forest Place because the bins were full. Our event is free to the public to come and have a look at the cars, free for the cars that are on display, and only source of income is through entry fees from the competitors and sponsorship. We also get a little bit from the food vendors. From starting in 2005 with just the start in Forest Place to running a special stages, the last stage of the event on Riverside Drive.
4 minutes, Ross.
We have now progressed the event substantially. Targa West next year will finish with the competition and the finishers medallions on Riverside Drive. We'll also run the Perth City Sprint, which we've been running as many years as an additional event. We also run the Shannon's Classic on the Swan, which is for about 100 odd cars. And we brought in the celebration of motorsport, which is all forms of motorsport vehicles, speedway, remote control cars and much more. And now we've also brought in the celebration of hot rods and street machines, which is going to keep on growing from years to come. But we also have food trucks, monster truck rides, helicopter rides, Viper wheelie rides, Lion Kids train rides, all of which went non-stop all day this year. And then we have a parade lap for hot rods and street machines, plus motorbike stunt riding. So it's a full day of activity. In the future, it's possible to keep on going, but due to the close co-location, it will always be a free event for the public, as it's impossible to fence off Langley Park, Riverside Drive and the Terrace Road car park. So we're hoping that we can find a solution to be able to keep the event going, because we love being in the City of Perth, and hopefully the City of Perth loves the event to keep running as well, if we can find a way of making that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. We appreciate it. Stay where you are, and thank you for your 19 years in the City of Perth. And as you heard Deputy Lord Mayor previously, and I've been along many times, the Forest Place event earlier this year was outstanding. Can I just say, not wishing to preempt any decisions that may get made about any of the matters that are raised tonight, and there'll be a number of people present delegations tonight who are perhaps either disappointed or have not received the entirety of the funding that they were seeking. And I know some in the room, and perhaps some listening on, will have cause to be disappointed. Can I say, from a City of Perth point of view, it's actually a measure of the city's great success in the event space that unfortunately some of the council decisions or the recommendations from the administration are not to be able to award everybody all of the money that they wanted, simply because we are getting more and more events coming into the city and applying for funding. And I appreciate, for those who might not be getting the maximum funding, or in some cases any funding, that will be hard to hear. But from our point of view, and trying to live up to what we have, the standards that we have set, and wanting to be the events capital of Western Australia, I've got to say part of the reason for that is because so many people are coming to us and asking for support with their events, and more events are being held in the city. That's the positive. I appreciate this. Depending on your perspective, there might be some negatives. I just want to ask Ross, firstly, if I may, and then any councillors, if any questions, feel free. Do you receive any funding from anybody else?
Yes, we get Healthwave being a strong sponsor us for the full 19 years as well. We've got an application in with them. We get good support from Shannon's Insurance. And then I'll say we get minor sponsors from numerous people within the sport as well.
Are road closures part of the reason you require funding?
Road closures is a very big part of what we've done. It's just something that just keeps on growing and growing in expense. And as I say to people in the road funding game, one extra sign may mean one extra ute, which means two extra people you got to pay for, and it just keeps on growing what we need to do with the traffic management.
So councillors, unless I'm mistaken, do I not recall that the Transport Minister, Minister Saffioti, in announcing changes to how the Perth Parking Fund will be administered, advising that one of those changes will be the fund will be accessible for people like Mr Tapper to have funding for the road closure component. CEO, are you able to shed any light on where that's at?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I understand the bill was introduced into Parliament in August, and I'm not certain as yet whether it has had final endorsement by the Governor.
Well, she could have got it through, I'm sure. Got the
After
numbers.
that, there will be obviously regulations, which we anticipate we will be involved in the consultation process for the drafting of, which would contain then the specificity about how the fund could actually be applied.
But that sounds like that might be too late for Mr Tapper then.
I suspect so.
Right. Okay. We heard you talking about fees there for a number of different elements of what the requirements from the city. And CEO, can I ask you? So, my understanding is we asked the general manager, or the general manager was going to undertake a review around fees, more or less addressing some of the specifics that Mr Tapper raised with us. And has that been done as yet?
Through the Lord Mayor, I might ask the General Manager for more information as related to that.
Thank you, through the chair. No, that's still in progress.
Do we know when we can see you? Well, can I go straight to the GM? When might we expect that?
We
to be?
were looking at putting it forward to a February council for review of policy and also the sponsorship programs for 23-24.
Okay.
Sorry, 24-25.
When's the event, Mr Tapper?
September next year.
So let's say it came back and said those fees are waived, and Mr Tapper's event's in September. How are we going to deal with that, do we reckon?
Again, through the General Manager?
Yeah.
Through the chair, the decisions of council are at this point in time with the information that we have, so we wouldn't retrospectively go back through all of the in-kind recommendations that council have put forward previously.
It'd be tough though, wouldn't it? I'm saying that's a comment from me, not a question. Okay, all right, well, there's some variables there. Mr Tapper. Are there any other questions from elected members? Councillor Gobbett?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you. Good to see you here. If I could refer you to page 111 and 112 of what we have in our council report, the funding amount that you've been recommended for approval for, there's commentary from the officers to say that if the assessment panel agreed that $60,000 cash would have been appropriate if budget was available, what's your stance on that if that were to become available?
If we got 60,000, we would find a way of making the event, but we would be asking, because we sat this year with our fingers crossed, very hardly crossed, because the Terrace Road car park fees have been as high as $30,000 was what it was listed to be. The way it's been charged out in the past is every car bay for 24 hours, which in the early days we went, how can that be? Because Terrace Road car park's not fully booked for 24 hours on a Sunday. But that's the way the fees will work. But now it's come back, and the way it was this year, we got told if the free car parking bays on a Sunday stand in place, it dropped down to $13,000 for the hire of the car park, I think. Well, I have to double checks on that, and that assisted immensely. So if we got a $60,000 and a guarantee that things like the Terrace Road car park fees weren't going to be $30,000, we would certainly be able to work with the events team and work out a solution to make the whole thing happen.
Mr Tapper, all your expenses and all your income taken into account, do you make money on the event?
No.
Do you break even?
Oh, we break even. We do make money. Like as I quite often say, if you're not making a profit, you're making a loss, in which case it's not sustainable. We've gone through big hits, one with COVID and then with what this pause has. But Jan and I are past what we might say retirement age. We do it as passion. Yes, we make money. Yes, we do pay ourselves a small amount of money. And we can keep going with that because we love it. We see within our sport the amount of people the most common thing that's the end thing that everyone talks about is mental health. And I quite often say the biggest men's shed probably in the world is guys working on cars in their sheds. And it's not as like a typical men's shed with people doing woodwork but all these guys, whether it's rally cars, race cars, hot rod, street machines, whatever it may be. There's guys working on cars just about every night of the week and every weekend, getting ready to display their cars or to compete in their cars. And that's what we want to keep moving is for Jan and I to support these guys because they love what they're doing and we love what we're doing and we just want to keep it going. So the answer is yes, we do make a profit. Are we a multinational company? Far from it. So we do it for the passion for our sport, which I've done for 48 years and don't see an end date.
Sure. No, you've done it as well as anyone. I mean, I'm pleased that we have this review underway. I think you've identified an area that Council has not felt necessarily comfortable with, and that's why we've asked for that review. And that review will come back to us in February. I think we're hearing, General Manager. I mean, it feels as though it would be unfair if that comes back in February and says, oh, we're going to waive fees, and the very fees that Mr Tapper is asking to have waived will be imposed on him. And I'm looking for some guidance on perhaps whether there might be a way. Now that's the recommendations might not be that. Recommendations might be double the fees. So we won't get too excited. But if the recommendation was, oh, we're going to waive certain fees, it feels like there should be a way to make it applicable to events that are after that review.
Maybe ask government.
Right. I'm just asking questions. I'm allowed to, as you know, Councillor Fleet. You were the one that told me, remember? I haven't forgotten that very wise piece of advice from Councillor Fleet, the man with local government experience. He said, it's your meeting. You can do what you like. And I do.
Through the chair. I'll take that on notice.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Ross, if there's no other questions from anyone, we thank you for your huge contribution into the city, and there will be more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thanks, Ross, and thank you, Jan, for being here. I'm going to invite now Ting Cheng, and is it Rose Teen Su representing the Chung Hua Association? Dr Ting Cheng, in fact, speaking against the recommendation in item 12.2 to come forward. Dr Cheng, good evening to you and welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Honourable Lord Mayor, House of Assemblies, councillors of City of Perth. I'm Ting Chen, the president of Chung Hua Association. First of all, on behalf of Chung Hua Association, I appreciate City of Perth's support to Perth Chinese New Year Fair since 2012. But here today, our purpose is to seek your support, especially for additional funding, allocation from the City of Perth to enhance the celebration and create a good experience for our community. Allow me to present the key aspects of our proposal. We incurred a deficit about $15,000 for the 2023 Chinese New Year Fair, with support of hundreds of volunteers. Organizing the upcoming Chinese New Year Fair has proven to be financially challenging, primarily due to the higher operation cost, especially that the expenses of the traffic management and security alone amount is about $53,000. This is probably my staff, Rosti, will give you more details. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Rosin. I'm the project coordinator for Chung Hua Association. I'm handling the Chinese New Year event for next year. So before I start, I want to give you a picture that next year, Chinese New Year, is the Year of Dragon, which is a symbolic year for the all Asian community. And in the Year of Dragon will come every 12 years. So that's why we will do extra things, extra component for next year Chinese New Year event. One of them is the Chinese dragon sculpture. They make by upside 100% recycled material, and we plan is a 6 to 7 meter long. initially we planned to put it in Yagan Square, but due to the renovation delay, so we now moved the plan to the North Beach Piazza and display for 2 weeks. This sculpture, before we display the sculpture, we will conduct 4 to 6 workshops, and we will invite all the Chinese association leader and representative together in the Chonghua North Beach Hall to make this. So this project is not just an art project, also a sustainable project, and also the community and community engagement project. So this is the extra component we plan to do. Also, to give you a more detail of the attraction or dragon, we received the media release from the Perth Mint, who recently launched their dragon coin. In the media release, the GM stated there they experienced the unprecedented demand for the last year of dragon coin is 20112, and there is international interest in the 2024 release was high. That's why Perth Mint also showing the interest after display the sculpture. 2 weeks they invite us to move the sculpture to there. So our project is not only just for the event. So before event and after, before that, the SPS also showing the interest because recently they come for the Diwali, so they visit Chonghua. So I share this idea with them. They are very interested. So despite they cover our Chinese New Year Fair event, they're also interested to shooting the whole process for all the Chinese community making.
4 minutes now, Royston.
Sorry, is it finished?
We're at the 4-minute mark, but you can finish up.
They also interest to shooting the whole process and also the unveiling ceremony, which is 1 day before the Chinese New Year Fair. And also, I want to give you a background. Saturday, the Saturday of the event is the first day of the Lunar New Year, so it's perfect timing for the dragon sculpture unveiling. So the Sunday, that's why next year we'll do 2 days event instead of 1. So it's first day of the dragon year, So it's a perfect timing to do the unveiling sculpture, dragon sculpture ceremony. So, and all the associate leader who making the sculpture, they will present. So we will drive a lot of crowd, the footprint to city of Perth. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Rose T. You've made some excellent points there. Points well made. And Dr. Chen, thank you. I'm going to invite councillors if they have any. We were there last year, Councillor Gobbett, and Councillor, the Deputy Lord Mayor was there with us too. You were the Deputy Lord Mayor then, but the Deputy Lord Mayor was there. Councillor Gobbett.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I had a read of your deputation listing. Could you maybe be specific as to the difference in the report of the 120 that you've requested versus the 80 that's been recommended to us? What aren't we going to see happen within the city of Perth as part of your festival coming up if it's not approved to the full amount?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
What aren't we going to see? What's the difference in the 120 versus the 80,000 that we're being recommended?
Yes, last year, City of Perth gave it 80,000, but this year we request additional 40,000 because the event day will be instead of 1 day, they will become 2 days, and also Chonghua will not expect additional for next year because we won't do the sculpture for every zodiac, only the year of dragon. We want to make something different. Yeah, we won't make for sculpture for pig, dog, or other zodiac animals. So there will be additional just for the special project because it's year of dragon. And also we will do the additional merchandising with the dragon. This is the Chinese word, the dragon. Yeah, for the redemption program because dragon have a special attraction for the Asian community. Yeah. So we will like they spend in the events like certain money they can redeem this back in our counter. So they will also drive the economics to the local business.
Thank you. Councillor Gobbett, happy? Any other questions from any councillors? Dr. Cheng, was there something you wanted to
Just
say?
whatever addition, we also seek additional fundings from OMI as well as Noto West. And then whatever additional funding we appreciate.
Yeah, understood.
Okay.
Understood. Dr. Cheng, thank
Yep.
you very much for being here, and thanks for your great service to our community and bringing Northbridge to life every year. We greatly appreciate it. And Roseanne, thank you very much also for being here. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. We're going to move now to deputation number 4, and I'm going to invite Natasha Tang and Chen Kim, representing Buddha's Light International Association of Western Australia. Only one stepping forward's fine, if that's the way it is. Buddha's Light International Association of WA, speaking against the recommendation in item 12.2. Natasha, is it?
Yes.
Natasha, if you could just give us your name and your address, thank you, and then away you go.
Yes. I'm Natasha Tang. I'm from 276 Medicine Road in Applecross, representing the Buddha's Light International Association of Western Australia. Lord Mayor, council members, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I stand before you today to advocate for the reconsideration and approval for the declined grant application for the Buddha's Birthday and Multicultural Festival 2024. This event holds an immense cultural significance for our city, having been a very high-profile celebration in the Perth CBD for nearly 20 years. Firstly, the festival has become synonymous with multiculturalism, drawing attendees from across Perth region, regional towns, and interstates. Over the past 20 years, the event has travelled and transformed landmark locations such as the Langley Park, Elizabeth Quay, and Supreme Court Gardens into a vibrant hub of cultural exchange and celebrations. These unique programs, intricate venue design, and colourful decoration, family-friendly activities that focus on healthy lifestyle, well-being, have made it a strong attraction for people from all ages and all walks of life to enjoy. Secondly, the festival's historical and social impact cannot be overstated. Since 2004, the Buddha's Birthday and Multicultural has played a pivotal role in shaping a multicultural landscape that has inspired many ethnic community groups to join forces in promoting our state diversity. So this event is actually a very pioneer event in our state in that sense. It stands as a sole public Buddhist event representing 58,000 Buddhists in Western Australia, earning recognition as a top 5 community event by the Office of Multicultural Interests. Furthermore, this event has proven to be a catalyst for economic growth, activating the city by boosting business traffic. To elevate this impact, the event organizer will be working really hard next year by inviting the Perth CBD businesses to actively participate by setting up their stalls to promote their brands during the event. We also would like to expand our publicity strength through various social media platforms. Lastly, let's not overlook the strength that the Buddha's Birthday and Multicultural Festival that is unique and a valuable asset for the capital city. With no doubt, the festival has been and will be continued to portray Perth City as a true champion embracing multiculturalism and multi-faith capital city. In conclusion, I sincerely urge and ask for the assessing panel and the Perth City Council to consider and to recognize this important characteristic of this event so that we can continue to support and to ensure the legacy of this vital event that enriches our city's cultural fabric to remain into the future. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Natasha. You've made some compelling points and points well made, and I've attended and enjoyed the event. Is there another
Mayor,
speaker?
I have John coming as well, representing the Buddhist community. May John have a few words?
Sure, we've got about a minute and a half left, John, so why not?
Yeah, sure. So, Lord Mayor, councillors, officers, I'm John Waite from 14B Duncan Road, Cootanup. I'm the Deputy President of the Buddhist Council of Western Australia. I want to come along here tonight just to give support to the BLIA representation. Over the years, they've been a very efficient and forward-moving organisation. They're involved in community service in many different areas. This event attracts a lot of different multicultural organisations and people to come together and share the event. A lot of the smaller organisations actually gain a significant benefit from seeing the leadership of an efficient organisation, and it encourages them to participate in society on a lot wider level than they otherwise would. So I would ask the council to reconsider and to support this event that in this day and age, I think to have an expression of compassion and sharing and interaction, tolerance, I think these are very important things to promote. Thank you.
John, thank you, and Natasha, thank you very much. Did any councillors have any questions for John or Natasha? Councillor Leeser, firstly.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you very much for the deputation. If you were granted the 15,000, which was in the papers, what benefit would that have to putting on the event?
Well, any sponsorship is greatly appreciated by us. Our event budget is around 200,000, and we have also submitted a grant application to the Office of Multicultural Interest just only recently, and roughly that we will be quite confident that we will get 30,000, which is the same as last year. But if we don't get anything from City of Perth, we'll be really struggling. And I think we did ask for 40,000. Last year we get half of it. So we wish that we can remain around there. And we just have to work really hard to find more sponsorship and private corporate sponsorship and the Buddhist communities and general community around to give their in-kind and also cash donation. It's really based on donation because and some of the income for the event from the event is come from the food sale, the vegetarian food fair, food stall, so that that's how we can manage the event for more than 20 years, almost 20 years, in a big scale event like that. Yes.
Thank you, Natasha. Thanks, Councillor Leeser. Councillor Gobbett, and then no, you're good. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you for coming along tonight. You just mentioned, if I understood it, that if you got the same as last year, that'd be very helpful.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And we would like to remain in the capital city because that is convenient, is central, and it's benefit the city, and it's really representative the Perth city because there's a lot of tourists come to this area. We have a lot of small council encourage us to, hold the event, but we think that CBD is very important, and we've been having very enormous support from the City of Perth back in the day of Lord Mayor Peter Natra. So it's been a historic event. So we're really grateful, and we would like to remain in the city. And we would like to work together with the city and to discuss to explore other places as well, if that's make the, bringing more economic benefit to the city as well. But because now it's November and our event is in second week of April, it's very hard for us to suddenly move to another place where we don't know. And infrastructure-wise, logistic-wise, it's just very hard for us.
Time is tight, yes, we understand.
Thank you.
Natasha.
Yeah, time is very tight.
I think Councillor Gonsalves had a question. Yep.
Just to touch on the point that you raised before, would partial funding still be able to secure the event for the city versus other local governments that you've mentioned, where where the loss of funding
Yes.
might occur, and you explaining that you might need to look at other smaller local governments.
No, I don't think so, because just like any local government, when the event is not taking place in their council, they would not be able to support us in grant sponsorship. Yes, unless we actually move there, let's say city of South Perth or, yeah. But
So the follow-up question would be, if you were to get partial funding, would that secure the event for the City of Perth?
yes, yes. We are fully committed to be here and to stay, yes.
Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just one thing I'd like to add, just as a comment, that back in May 21, the Society did contribute $6,700 to the Lord Mayor Distress Relief Fund, which does indicate a fantastic effort from if you have a look at their general accounts, it's a fair contribution from a small organisation.
Questions, Councillor Reynolds, if you can.
Sorry, there's no question.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, well, we'll thank you. Noted, and that was there in the papers. Are there any further questions from any councillors? So, a reminder for all councillors, except for me, debate in the ordinary council meeting and questions in these sessions. But we're feeling our way, I understand. Natasha, you've done an excellent job. John, thank you very much for being here in support. If there's no further questions from any councillors, well, thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
the
both.
opportunity.
Yeah, you're most welcome. I'm now going to call upon Glenn Watson, representing Alice Street Events, speaking for the recommendation in item 12.2, to come forward. Mr. Watson, welcome to you. If you can give us your name and address, and then away you go, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Glenn Watson, 93 Osborne Street, Jundana, speaking for the Strange Festival. First of all, thanks to the councillors, elected mayor, and the rest of the city staff for your support for Strange 2023, our second year. Back in June, we managed to pull together an event with some additional funding from the Department of Local Government, DLGSC. I can never remember the abbreviation. That funding came through very late, and we had 3 months to pull together what ended up being an event that was double in size of our inaugural festival in 2022. 2023 saw 96 artists participate in Strange across 30 spaces in the city, most of which were vacant retail spaces. Those installations across the 10 days saw an estimated 78,000 people come through and experience those spaces. Following the festival, we were able to, as a result of our additional funding this year, we were able to get Culture Counts on board to do an impact assessment from a cultural impact, from an arts community impact, as well as from a commercial impact. And the report was based on over 500 responses to the survey, which I've been told by Culture Counts was more than triple what the average arts and events response would be for Culture Counts. That report demonstrated that 99% of the public respondents agreed that the event was positive. It had a positive impact on themselves. 100% of the participating artists were in agreement that it created a platform that otherwise would not be there for them to showcase their content and art to the community. And quite importantly, the economic impact that was assessed from Culture Counts was that it had a $4.2 million multiplied impact to the City of Perth over those 10 days, in what is a typically quiet time of year before the school holidays, after WA Day, where typically, and based on the City of Perth Economic Development report that was provided, showed an 8 to 13% drop in foot traffic over that period of time compared to last year. But during the hours and locations of Strange, we actually saw an increase of footfall from last year by about 5%. So the actual differential saw a 17 to 26% increase in footfall during the period of Strange this year. Looking ahead to next year, I guess first of all, thank you again for the City of Perth's recommendation to the council and to the Lord Mayor for continued support for next year. We're immensely grateful, and the early notification of this allows us to plan next year's festival with more time, more resource, and hopefully to grow that once again. We're looking to expand into performing arts, which is something we've not been able to achieve on a significant level in previous years, and looking to bring touring artists, international and interstate artists into the festival. Maybe not international next year, but looking to expand that and embed Strange as a destinational festival that increases visitation and foot traffic beyond the local community, which to this point it has been. So I guess to summarise, thanks again to the City of Perth for your support in year 1 and year 2. Year 3, again, really appreciate the additional support and the continued support, and we look forward to kind of showcasing those vacant spaces around the city once again, the Liberty Theatre, Piccadilly Theatre, the vacant retail spaces, the basements, the rooftops and so on in that period of time. Thank you.
Good on you, Glenn. Thank you. It's been the year just gone was your second year, correct? Yeah, it's been a huge success and a wonderful addition to our overall city events program. So congratulations from curating an event in our time from scratch. Well done, and we're delighted to have been able to support, and as you mentioned, in particular those winter months, and that's real opportunity for the city for growth, as we saw with Kings Park. You put the right show on for Perth people in winter, they'll come out and see it. And it's the same with your event. So well done. Are there any questions from any councillors? You've answered all of our questions. Thank you very much, Glenn, and we appreciate you being here. I'm going to invite now Alison and Michael Collins. Alison, we didn't get your surname, I don't think. That's why I'm saying, unless it is Collins, but I don't think it is it?
It's not. It's Alison Banks.
Alison Banks. Alison, welcome. And is Michael joining you, or he's just in support?
He's going to be here in silent and will possibly pipe up if required.
Famous astronaut Michael Collins.
I'm at 48 Harrison Street in Balcatta.
Thank you, Alison. Time's underway.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for having us here this evening. As the chair of the committee for the 109th National Assembly for Skull International Australia, taking place in March next year, we would like, on behalf of the committee and myself, I would like to thank you for your support so far. And we are speaking to or for your decision, but also in the hope, as mentioned earlier by yourself, Lord Mayor, of gathering perhaps some additional support for our event. I did want to clarify, looking at the points made in the response to our application, just to the nature of Skull International, because I thought it may be missed quite easily if you're not in our industry, the unique nature of what we do and who we are. We're a not-for-profit organisation, and we're the only organisation in the world that unites all 3 arms of the travel, tourism and hospitality sections of the tourism industry. We have 24 clubs in Australia, of which Perth is one, and 311 clubs in 76 countries around the world. We meet regularly at the local, state, national, regional and global level to live our association's ethos of doing business among friends. So our event, which will have a national convening from interstate, a few local clubs being Kununurra and Broome coming to Perth, and our local Perth club, will also be really targeting the key markets for City of Perth and for Tourism Western Australia of Southeast Asia and the Indian subcontinent. It's not just about the event that we'll be having itself bringing that visitation and driving economic benefit to the City of Perth, which we are focused on supporting 100%, but it's the ongoing visitation when you have the level of delegate that will be attending this event being senior management and leadership level, coming in where their sole focus is a very much distinguished and discerning eye on travel, tourism and hospitality, what business they can then bring into not only our state but specifically our city where we're going to be basing all of our activities. I would also like to say that being a not-for-profit organisation and not a business, we can't just draw a report to tell you that specific economic benefits straight away, but we will be dealing with our members in terms of their hotel properties. We're using Accor properties and IHG properties all within the City of Perth as delegate accommodation and ongoing pre- and post-accommodation. We're using members who have tourism operated businesses such as 2 Feet and a Heartbeat, Sea-Link, Segway Perth and the like to have those pre and post and during event activities to drive knowledge of those businesses as well. Our speakers, it was identified we're mainly local. Well, we want them to be local. We want to highlight the benefit of doing business and bringing people into Perth and into Western Australia. So 90% of them are now confirmed, and we don't want to draw attention away to send people elsewhere. We want them coming here and spending their money in Perth. Also, in terms of the ongoing benefits, we are using this as a little bit of a taste test. Our club was born in 1964, and this is the first time we've ever applied for and won a National Assembly. We have already travelled independently under our own funding to myself to Kuala Lumpur. Michael, our president, has recently been to South Africa to our sister club or our twin club in Cape Town who will be attending this event. In fact, we have got delegates committed from New Zealand, South Africa, Malaysia, Singapore. We're looking at twinning with Bali as well.
4 minutes, Alison.
Bringing those people in to highlight what we have to offer. And in terms of our events, we are very much targeting the Indian subcontinent, that key market. Our gala, we're looking at having it at Optus Stadium prior to thinking about this very carefully. And of course, that lies outside the City of Perth. We're having it at the Wacker. We reckon that'll really resonate with our Indian subcontinent visitors. And we're aiming fairly and squarely at having them come and spend their money here. If you can give us any additional support, we're grateful for what you're giving us already, but I think the ongoing knock-on is very much a different kettle of fish than a once-off event, and we're aiming for 2027 for the World Congress here in Perth, if it goes well. Thank you.
Terrific. Bang on 5 minutes, Alison, too, so extra points for that. Thank you very much. Am I right in saying about 250 guests? Is that what you're
250
anticipating?
delegates, hopefully more. We're trying to be conservative.
Sure. And given that, obviously, about the tourism space and all facets of the tourism area, do you receive funding from Tourism WA?
We are currently in talks with Tourism WA, but the scope of the support we're envisaging from the negotiations we're having at the moment, we would need, City of Perth is really our number one area of support. There's some in-kind there, a little bit of sponsorship, but yeah.
So sorry, just so I can understand that better, you're not anticipating getting
We're not
funding?
anticipating getting the same level of support that we're already getting from the City of Perth or looking at getting, judging by what you've delivered.
Sure, and the recommendation from our administration is for $15,000 cash and just over $3,000 in kind. But TWA can't do that. Sure.
No.
Okay. Are there any questions from any councillors? Yes, Councillor Gonsalves.
Do you have a potential breakdown of the delegates from percentage-wise from international, local, and
Absolutely.
national?
So we would expect that 60 to 70% would be Australian from interstate, and the remainder, or the vast remainder, in fact, 60 to 70% mainly from interstate, some of that being local, but the locals are not our main aim, and generally at all these events it's interstate, and the rest being international. That is pretty new though. We went up to the Asia Area Congress for the very first time. We had an Australian delegation in Bali this year. Did help that it was Bali, it was close and affordable. But the Australian delegation was bigger than anywhere else because we are actively looking to encourage them to come down in return. And they indicated that they would.
Any further questions, councillors? Oh yes, Councillor Gonsalves.
Are you able to elaborate on the business exchange side of things?
Certainly. So what we will be doing, or what we are doing, is inviting our members who operate tourism businesses and accommodations, etc., to showcase their businesses at the town hall. So we are looking once again, City of Perth property or venue, to showcase those businesses to the incoming delegates so that they can see what is available here if they are to bring their events or groups in. Bearing in mind, some of these operators may be small to medium, but looking at all sorts of opportunities that we can do business amongst friends. And it's very encouraging at the moment, those initial conversations. They're very excited. We are too.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillors, any other questions? With that, doesn't appear to be. Alison, I'll say thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And good luck with the event, obviously, and what's to follow here. Thank you. We're going to move now to, that's it. So we're items 7, 8 and 9, confirmation of minutes, questions by members which due notice has been given, and correspondence, along with petitions, will all be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting next week. So we're going to move to reports. And councillors, as we move through the reports, I'll ask if you have any questions, and I'll understand if any of our guests are going to say goodnight at this point. Thank you very much for being here, and we do appreciate your deputations, and thanks for being active members of our community. Thank you. Drive safely. So as we move through here, if you do have any questions in relation to the items, and see, I believe you have some information on this. Is that correct? Okay. Right. Okay. You sure? Okay. What do you think? Okay. Well, maybe I've got a rogue copy. Okay. Let's go to item 11, and that is Planning and Economic Development Alliance reports. 11.1 is the review of City Planning Scheme number 2, Planning Policy 4.6, signs. Councillor Leeser, you had raised some questions.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. They were all answered satisfactorily.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any further questions from anyone? Yeah, Councillor Fleeton.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. So overall, the list of objectives in the policy, there might be some ambiguity in this. Is this an area that's completely delegated to the admin, or is part of this now going to come to council?
CEO.
If I could ask the General Manager, Planning and Economic Development to answer, please.
Thank you. Through you, Lord Mayor. So this policy is not going to put in place any delegations. The delegations are captured through our schedule of delegations that gets reviewed regularly. So in line with the existing delegations, an application, if it's dealt with, will be dealt with under delegation unless there are objections received. If it's advertised and we can't resolve those, then those types of applications typically come to council unless councillors or the Lord Mayor exercise your right under the delegation schedule to call in the item.
I've got a couple, so I might just keep rolling through. So do you need to update the delegation register partway through the year before we do it in that annual review if we adopt this, or does the mechanism just allow the change or the new policy?
Through you, Lord Mayor. So the schedule is updated annually. We won't be looking at making any changes to the delegations in respect of this policy outside of that process.
Okay. A couple more, Lord Mayor. So hoarding exemptions on page 20, the upkeep or conditions to keep it to a standard, how do we ensure we're enforcing certain materials to be used in highly visible areas?
So through you, Lord Mayor, I guess the purpose of this column is to try and make it easier for the community to, or for our businesses and stakeholders to get a sign erected in the city. If there are materials that are erected that are contrary to this, then we would contact that stakeholder or business, and we would request that they then submit a development application. It would no longer be considered exempt, at which time we would deal with those materials. Failing that, if they didn't submit the application, we'd need to take compliance action.
And so, if I can keep going, Lord Mayor, is there a customer-facing document which shows them what an allowable material is? How do we avoid this back and forward communication with people on what's allowed?
Through you, Lord Mayor, I think it's very difficult to have a document that talks about materials. We can look at, and I'm happy to provide some additional information after the meeting as to what we consider to be acceptable materials or not, if we have that information, and whether or not it's appropriate to include that in this policy. I'm suspecting that it's not, because it's how long is a piece of string kind of argument, but I'd like to take that offline and come back with a more fulsome response.
Okay, my next question might be the same then. So when we've got fixed locations in buildings, and I'm thinking of the Boffin store, we had that awful plasterboard that was sitting there forever, and we viewed that as not being acceptable. Which part of this new policy polices that?
So through you, Lord Mayor, if there is a sign on it, so a hoarding sign is really about the sign. A hoarding without the signage component is dealt with under a different part of the organisation, under different local laws and policies. So if we would take normal compliance action to deal, or informal compliance action to deal with a landowner if there was an untidy premises, we would work with that owner to try and resolve the issue. But it's really only if there is a sign on the hoarding that it falls into this policy.
So 6.2 on page 28 states offensive content shall not be permitted on any sign within the city. What does offensive mean to the city?
Through you, Lord Mayor, I might like to expand on that following this meeting, if I may. It does become a bit of a judgment call. So
who judges that?
Sorry?
Who judges what's offensive?
It would be the city's officers that are looking at that.
Okay. So third-party advertising, the allowable example on page 29, can the city show elected members an example of what would be allowed? The previous policy was very long, granted, but it had some very good examples of what you could see. The new policy, much shorter, great. I'm still trying to get what would an acceptable or allowable setup be in some of these areas. So I don't know if that's in the works.
Through you, Lord Mayor, we can provide a couple of examples offline, yes.
Two more, sorry. Will the city be subjected to its own policy as an applicant? So if we use our car parks as an example and we want to install some signage, we might want to put a digital billboard, we might want to do anything. How do we go about that scenario?
Through you, Lord Mayor, so the city would be subject to the same policy as everybody else, and that's something we need to be careful about. I think it was one of the things that was picked up in the inquiry that we need to do that. So we work very closely with other parts of the organisation to make sure that happens. And the same exemptions would apply. So if it was a sign that was sitting in the exemption column, we wouldn't need to look at it. But if they needed a DA, we'd need to deal with it in that way.
So on that, if I can expand, so a digital board that rotates with some third-party advertising, would that be allowed?
Through you, Lord Mayor, yes, this policy does allow that type of signage. The previous policy was a little more limited in that it provided very little direction. So this policy is more nuanced in that it talks about where those signs would be allowed, under which circumstances, and the size of those signs. So I think it's certainly more useful, this policy, in that space. I think it does recognise that those types of signs are now an important part of a contemporary city, and it seeks to accommodate them whilst making sure that they contribute positively to the public realm.
Thank you. And last one, the policy references heritage protected places. I'm just hoping this doesn't include the local heritage survey that the city undertook. So if it's on that survey, does that mean it's a heritage place under this policy?
Through you, Lord Mayor, my feeling would be it would not be, because it's not protected when it's on the survey, but I will confirm that for you in the information.
Thank you very much.
I've got a question about a specific example which I know was raised. I think it went through Chief Executive. It may not have been answered, but we were just on pre-election time, or it may have been and I may have missed it. But I wonder if I can ask about a specific in King Street and Ted's cameras. And the view of the precinct group and others was that signage was not in keeping with the precinct, with the rules that govern that precinct. And on inspecting it myself, it did look to be out of whack with what else has been allowed in King Street. I wonder whether that is captured whether that would be captured in here. And were we satisfied, in fact, that was the right application of our rules for the Ted's camera sign?
Directly
if you need to take it on
Lord
notice, take it on notice.
I'll need to take that example on notice because I'm not aware of it.
Sure.
But I guess a heritage protected place will include a precinct that has heritage protection under the scheme. So under our scheme, we don't just have buildings that are protected, but there are some precincts that have some heritage value. And so that would come into play. But I'll give you some commentary about that specific example.
Okay, thank you. And one for General Manager of Commercial, if that's okay. Does General Manager of Commercial envisage these rules holding our business back in any way, shape or form? So the rules around signage for our own portfolio, do you see this as limiting in any way?
Through the Lord, Matt, excuse me. We are currently reviewing this signage policy, I suppose, in accordance with the opportunities that the city may have for its assets. But we also need to be mindful as well that main roads have a policy about sort of, roadside, certainly digital signage. So it's not just the city, we've also then got a lot more broadly at main roads. So we are bringing those two things together, looking at the opportunities, and then we will be addressing the market.
Okay, thanks, GM. Councillor Fleet.
So I'll follow up on that. We've been asking this question for a number of months now around opportunities for the city to use its real estate portfolio for these opportunities. Can the city give us an indication on when this investigation might be concluded?
GM Commercial.
We anticipate we'll be bringing something back to an elected member engagement session for a discussion during this financial year.
Councillors. Councillor Leeser.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a clarification. On page 27, where it says non-permitted signs, it talks about sky sign, and the wording of that paragraph, I think, needs to just be looked at a little bit. So when I'm reading it, a sign fixed to the roof, comma, rooftop plant room, comma, parapet wall, or architectural feature at the top, and extends more than 200 millimetres. So does that mean all of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 features before it says 200 millimetres are included in the 200 millimetres, or is it just the bit after the comma? So I'm thinking about a sign that's painted on the top of a roof, so that a helicopter or a plane can see it, is what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about how is that captured in that. So that's just a comment, really needs clarification. Thank you.
Yes, on notice. Happy.
Through you, Lord Mayor, we'll provide clarification outside of this meeting. To my mind, this is when there is a roof sign, not necessarily projecting upwards, but it's a sign that's attached to the roof, and that is 200 mils higher than the level of that roof. But we'll provide confirmation in the pack.
Thank you, General Manager. Any further questions from any councillors? Thank you. We'll move. Oh, yes, Councillor Gonsalves.
Just on page 21, in terms of the projected image sign and the indication there that the sign does not operate beyond 10 p.m. daily, is there any provisions for once-off events or other special purpose uses?
Through you, Lord Mayor. So what that column does is it puts in place, if you meet those requirements, you don't need a planning approval from the city. But if you want to run a sign that's different to that, then you need to just apply for permission from the city.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to move to item 11.2, the Perth City Deal Perth Strategic Plan. Do any councillors have any questions on this item? Councillor Fleeton.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. So overall, and this is a guesstimate, you might need to take this on notice, how much time has the city spent on this Perth strategic plan?
CEO?
Lord Mayor, if I could invite the General Manager, Planning and Economic Development to respond.
Certainly.
Through you, Lord Mayor, probably hard to quantify, but if I may comment, I think we have attended and been engaged in many meetings and had many conversations, and that's in addition to some of the earlier roundtables that were held to gather data. So I'd say we've spent quite a bit of time on the project.
And if I'm right in reading the agenda, the idea of terminating this plan because we're working on multiple other documents which will achieve the same thing, that idea is stemmed from the department. They've initiated this request.
If I may answer that, Lord Mayor. There have been some ongoing conversations, as the General Manager has indicated, but between the Director General and myself, there were also some further conversations about whether this particular initiative, which goes unfunded in the city deal and was a initiative probably driven at a time when we didn't have a local planning strategy, we weren't reviewing our scheme, and we were in a caretaker arrangement with the commissioners. So all of these planning documents and frameworks have now provided quite a landscape, and actually until such time as we finalise some of them, including the UWA QE2 precinct plan, we're best placed to pause and then have a look at what we might do, because it does appear to be duplicating existing efforts.
But just to clarify, who initiated the idea that we pause or terminate the plan?
So the Director General and I had a conversation about where the process was heading. And from that prompted then the state government to ask the question. It also came up in our Committee for Perth meeting when we discussed with the Premier directly whether there was a continued appetite to continue with this body of work.
And so we've talked to a number of stakeholders through roundtables and the like for a while. What are we going to tell stakeholders if we say yes next week to pausing this?
It would be my assessment, and the General Manager, Planning and Economic Development would be better placed, but I think, as is explained in the document, that there is existing documents partway through conclusion, and outside of developing something that would be very high level, it would be a resource and also a cost when we have some other work to be done.
Yeah, I'm not disputing the recommendation. I agree with it. What I'm getting at is, what are we going to tell people? Because there's been all of this activity for years around roundtables, this, that and the other. The local planning scheme, when we were first elected in 2020, was already delayed. We had to start afresh with a new GM. We've gone around in circles in this area, and now we're going to say, well, we're going to stop this. I want to know what we're going to tell people where we're up to. And the other question I've got, the department's saying, yeah, let's pause this. Are they going to give us any help or priority in the scheme, in any of the documents we're working on? We've got precinct plans that are overdue. We've got other precinct plans we need to do. The department's taking resources off us in this recruitment drive, and we've got all of this work to do to fill the void of this strategic plan. We're pausing this, and I don't see any resource allocation from them saying we get how important everything else is and all of these others. I just see us pausing this and not saying anything. I see a huge vacuum here.
If it is Council's recommendation, we can obviously do a communication plan to key stakeholders. I think the bigger issue around some of the roundtables that have been held externally or the city has been involved in has often had different expectations of the memberships of those groups, which is part of the challenge. And even this particular master plan, as discussed, is really a very high level document that might not also satisfy the various stakeholders as well. So I think there's a communication opportunity to explain that before you get to a master plan or a strategic plan, you need to do the work that informs it.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm asking for is, before we make this decision, it would be great to see what your plan is to talk to our stakeholders.
And so if I could take that on notice, we might bring back before the next ABS a plan for how we intend communicating this. I think the point being that we have an agreement with state government, and if in essence we are the two major parties to this. So it's a unique opportunity to align with the fact that there's a body of work, yes, we note we will do, but for the time being there's some further work to be done in-house.
Yeah, and just one last question on these precinct plans as a tool to be more granular. We've got the UWA and QE2 precinct plan, which is well delayed. Can we ask for them for their resources or help in fast-tracking some of these precinct plans?
If I could invite the General Manager, Planning and Economic Development, but I would add, I think that we have been, and I know, have a very good relationship with the department who has been of assistance, and even with our local planning strategy. You know, we move through that process very promptly.
But we're very, very delayed in that.
Maybe if the General Manager could talk to the specifics. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Lord Mayor. I think the precinct plan is a protracted process. It did get a few additions lobbed into the process at a stage, which potentially slowed it a little, but it is just a protracted process. I think the state government has a lot of skin in the game for this precinct plan. They're on the steering committee, and all indicators are they're being pushed pretty hard to drive it as quickly as they can as well. With respect to the scheme, we also have a working group with them on the scheme, and we meet regularly, and I think they understand the importance of pushing it along.
And so just last question, next week we move to cancel this strategic plan, which has no statutory holding at all. It doesn't do anything. It's just this imaginary, fluffy A4 piece of paper on the city. I get that, but we have so much work to do before our most important statutory document is ready. So I want to know what we're going to do in the interim, because we keep talking about this growing city and this, that and the other. What are we doing with the state to work together to make these things happen?
Through to the GM.
Thank you.
So through you, Lord Mayor, I guess both those major planning projects we're working closely with the state on. I think there is some recognition from us that outside of UWA precinct plan and QE2 precinct plan, there is the needs for some more granular planning to happen in other areas of the city. And that probably is more the master plan that some of the stakeholders were expecting. That aligns with the third recommendation in this report, where I think one of the terms of reference in the Capital City Planning Committee is to drive a master spatial plan for Perth. So I think that's something that's still on the agenda. I don't think it'll leapfrog the scheme. I think that's a future project, but I would suggest that that is something that should be driven by the state. Given all the planning stakeholders in the city, it's probably not a city-led project.
Thank you. Thanks for your questions, Councillor Fleeton. The previous DLM, Councillor Gobbett, myself and the CEO were in the City of Perth committee meeting when we raised that. The Premier was there and the Planning Minister also. And that was put to them about this. And the very clear, not impression, but the very clear messaging was that this was not a priority for them at this point. Councillor Gobbett, is that your recollection also? Yep. Okay. Just checking that my memory has not failed me. Thank you. Let's go to 11.3 if there was no other questions. 11.3 is curbside parking policy review. Any questions on this item? Thanks, councillors. Yes, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, hello.
Page 85, they talk about parking control of signage, and it contributes to the cluster in the city on the footpaths and reducing it back to entrances and to street area zones. Do we envisage any confusion with the public? Because we already have confusion with the signs we have now, let alone reducing them. So has there been any estimates on that?
Thank you, DLM. CEO?
Could the GM, Planning and Economic Development, please respond?
Through you, Lord Mayor, look, I think there will always be people that, if they're infringed for parking in the wrong place, will say that they were confused by the signage. But I think currently we have a lot of parking signage, and that in itself becomes confusing. So a tried and tested method in other places is to consolidate some of that signage, not to say that it'll be less informative or less directional. It's just we've got a large number of signs that are cluttering up the verges and curbside and are confusing. So we're looking at consolidating it.
If I could, please. Say, for instance, if you had 30 minutes for most of the street, then you have 15 minutes and 5 minutes. So what happens then? Do you consider that it's 30 minutes and you have signs for the 5 and 15 minutes?
Through you, Lord Mayor. I think the detail for that will come through in guidelines. The purpose of this policy is not to answer those questions. The purpose of this policy review is to set in place some very high-level principles, and then we're going to come back and fill in the detail with the guidelines.
Okay, TLM. Thank you. Any other questions from any councillors? Councillor Gonsalves.
Just on page 85, it notes that community and stakeholder engagement is not proposed for this review. I'm just wondering what the rationale for that and whether that will come up at any later stages.
Through you, Lord Mayor. I guess we're not proposing stakeholder engagement or community engagement because the changes that we're proposing are actually very minor to the policy at this stage. The guidelines that we're looking at putting in place, I'm not sure yet whether or not we intend to consult on those because they are more operational, but they will be shared with the elected members. But we don't always advertise every policy, and these are quite minor changes.
Thanks, Councillor Gonsalves. Nothing further. Just ahead of moving to 12.1, can we just have a pause of the live stream? I need a bathroom break, so I'm going to go to the bathroom. We'll be back in 1 minute. Thanks, everyone. Stream. Good, thank you. 12.1 Community Development Alliance reports. 12.1 is major events and festival sponsorship 2023-2024, Oz Cycling Limited. Any questions from any councillors on this one? Yes, Councillor Fleeton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So referring to point 13 on page 100, why is a member of an organisation outside of the city staff taking part in recommending how ratepayer funds are spent?
Thanks, Councillor. CEO.
I think I can answer that. Thank you very much. It's actually good governance to have an independent person. Healthways, obviously under the umbrella of lotteries, is also well experienced in undertaking assessments for grants on behalf of state government. And so having that independent expert person offering an alternative view from time to time or informing and assisting our own people, I think is a good external oversight opportunity.
So just a couple of follow-up questions. When you say independent, are these people on a pre-approved list who have been through training, or we know what their positions are, we understand what their skills are, training and the like?
If I could invite the General Manager Community Development, I would imagine their roles, though, relate to grants assessment, so they bring that expertise to our committees. But if I could invite the General Manager to respond.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, yes, that is correct.
So there's a register that you fill once a year with independent people that you cycle through, or how do you work out who's on this panel?
GM?
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor, sometimes that depends on who's available, but we try and rotate it around. I would make the comment that this is an element that's been through to lots of external review as part of best practice. So the feedback through the audits has been that this has been part of adding rigour to grants and sponsorship.
And so is there an admin or a council policy which dictates how the city operates in this area?
CEO? GM? GM?
We have the sponsorship policy, the council sponsorship policy, and as I indicated earlier, that will be coming back up in February to review that.
No, sorry, I meant a policy which guides how you induct or operate or administer these independent panel members.
We have an induction process for all on the panel, and again, that's been part of our audit process review. So there is a set induction process, a declarations of interest, a whole staged process that, as I said, has been part of the review process.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Fleeton. Any further questions from any councillors? Thank you. So we'll go to 12.2. This is Council Report Event Sponsorship 2023-2024 Round 2, some of whom we heard some delegations from tonight. Councillors, any questions, please? Councillor Leeser.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I previously submitted a question and I just need some clarification, please. I think it wasn't quite fully answered. So what I was getting at in my question was, let's say, as we heard tonight, Tarmac West didn't go ahead and then the city did not spend the $49,397 and we didn't pay it out. Couldn't the city then take that 49,000 odd and then fund the next highest applicant? So let's call that a reserve list or some sort of list of people in waiting in reserve. The question wasn't quite answered in that. So if I could have a response, please.
Through to the GM, General Manager of Community Development.
Thank you. The allocations for this round are within this financial year, and we do have a period of time as per the recommendation of being entered into the city within 3 months. So we have 3 months before the final agreement is done. So it's not practical for us to have that built into the expense of our program this year. So we have made a note in the response to your question that there is the local activation grant for the 2 that we've suggested are declined, but could be using a separate program budget, and that is under the CEO's delegation to approve. But in terms of council decisions for this round, no, we do keep it to the recommendations in this decision.
Can I have a follow-up, please,
Sure,
Lord Mayor?
Councillor
So
Leeser.
could we not create a reserve list? Could we not have something like that waiting there in case money was not expended?
GM.
Through the chair, in regards to the management of these kinds of sponsorship agreements, which, as I said, are allowed to take up to 3 months to finalise and get through, it may be that they then decline after that period of time. It's such a moving feast of what people are planning, how they plan, and that's part of why we do 2 rounds for these event sponsorships. So it's really, again, not practical for the overall outcome for the delivery of the event.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Fleeton.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I have to save my comments for next week, but I guess a question in the way that the panel makes comments and then its reflection in the score. Now, one of them that we're declining is the very last one on the list, which is this suited event. And E on page 125 states, the panel raised the logistics of closing King Street, noting that the applicant has not consulted with the city's activity approvals team or commenced discussion about closing roads. What impact did that have on the score?
General Manager, Community Development.
Through the chair, The comment is included in the item to reflect the level of preparation and planning provided in the submission. So it's articulating that, as well as being very highly conceptual with little detail of who was going to be involved, they hadn't done any preparatory work in regards to what was required for some of the elements that they were seeking money for. So when the panel are looking at it, they are looking at it to make sure that we're getting the best value for money and are ensuring that being what is asked of us has a fair and valid basis. So we thought it would be appropriate to include that in the item.
So if I could ask a follow-up, would it be common sense or not common sense to go and get approval for an event that hasn't been approved yet?
GM.
Through the Lord Mayor, part of the Smarty Grant submission asks for some evidence of some understanding of what they're seeking in terms of their overall costs for the events. So it is part of our process to understand the rigour with which they're going forward for their planning. It isn't a requirement, but again, it helps us understand the level of planning and the rigour of what they are asking in the budget.
So follow up, please, Lord Mayor. I'll just go back to my first question because it wasn't answered. What was the answer to not getting the approval? What did that reflect in the score? If they had the approval or if they'd lodged an application and it was in progress, what would the score have been bumped up to?
The scoring process doesn't work in that way, but the low score in regards to 42% is also reflected in the comments, not just in terms of the King Street closure, but in terms of, as I said, the conceptual nature of what was put forward, the lack of detail, all of those elements reflected in the low score and the level of detail in the submission. And when we are talking about the requests that are being asked, in this case, the total amount requested was $250,000, we would expect a level of detail and rigour to put forward ratepayer funds on the basis of what is provided.
Sure. Follow-up question, unrelated, it might need to go to the CFO. What reserve fund or where could the CFO possibly envisage money coming from if there was an amendment made next week to the resolution?
We'll ask.
Through to the CFO?
Yes, please, but if the CFO would like some more time, we could take that on notice. So we'll ask the CFO, please, Lord Mayor.
CFO?
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor, I think it would be best to take time to come back with a carefully considered response, should that be Council's wish.
Any further questions? Can I ask the GM, so the contemplated closure of King Street is something that does come up from time to time, and I appreciate the reasons for why this has been not advanced in this case. But do we have something, or could we prepare something that if an event organiser was interested in doing that we could make it quite clear what was required to be able to facilitate the closure of King Street? Because it is something that comes up often from interested stakeholders. It's a question they ask, could we close King Street, that section between Murray and Hay?
Thank you. Through the Chair, we do have through our teams a ability to work, and we go off on site with event organisers to look at ideal locations, what are the pros and cons, what kind of costs. So we work actively with event proponents. In this case, and particularly with all applicants, we always ask them to find out some detail and that they can speak to our officers to get that level of detail. So that would have been available to them if they had progressed the information that was requested in Smarty Grants.
Okay. So I guess in a way what I'm saying is if somebody else came and said we'd like to close King Street, are we confident that we've got what it takes to say, here's what you would need to do to be able to progress that query or that application?
Thank you. Through the Chair, yes, we have the experienced people that can provide general guidance of what's required. The fees for doing so are a separate issue in terms of what are the fees for any of the use of parking spaces and the like. So fees are one component of what an applicant who's looking at doing some work on our roadways needs to consider. Does that answer the question? Sorry.
It does, yeah. I suppose what I'm saying is we'd like to be nimble enough that if people come to us, here it is, here's what you need to do. We'd like to see it. So whether that means working towards a document or a simple, but we get asked a lot, and it'd be handy to be able to give that information in an easy way. Thanks. Cheers. Are there any further questions from any councillors? No? We move to then 12.3, Council Report, Economic Development Sponsorship 23-24 Program, AOG Energy and Skull International Australia 109th Assembly. Are there any questions on this one, councillors? So 13 then is Infrastructure and Operations Alliance Reports, 13.1 CP 3.3 Tree Protection Policy Review. Councillors?
Thanks.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Fleet.
Thanks. So page 138 gives some discussion points with a NOM and then some reports there. Am I right in reading that the NOM was asking for some form of mechanism where there was a tree pruning request? ELT's gone away to look at some potential amendments, but then decided not to proceed with anything?
CEO.
If I could invite the General Manager, Infrastructure and Operations to respond, please.
Thank you. Through you, Lord Mayor. No, that is incorrect. So we actually have made a number of amendments. So we've amended the policy, which is the subject of this paper, but also our internal guidelines to include two things in the guidelines. The one is for ad hoc tree pruning requests. Just remember, we have our own program of tree pruning, but should a member of the public wish for tree pruning, there's a process that we've now included in our guidelines. And should an individual not be satisfied with a decision for an ad hoc pruning to occur, we then elevate that to the CEO's office for a final determination.
Thank you for that clarification. I was obviously reading the report wrong. Is there a very simple graphic that we're going to be updating on our public-facing website on how people go about this? People don't read our policies. We need some form of instruction on how this will work.
For the General Manager?
Thank you, through you, Lord Mayor. There's no reason why we can't do that. Thank you.
And so just a follow-up question, how are we going to communicate this change to residents?
Thanks, Councillor. GM?
I'll take that one on notice, Councillor. We'll come back with a response.
Thank you. Any further questions? Beauty. We'll move to 14, Commercial Services Alliance reports. There are not any tonight. Corporate Services service reports. 15.1 is the monthly financial statements for 2023. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Fleet.
Thanks. Can the CFO or the CEO please elaborate on the error from Landgate identified in point 42 on page 168?
Through to the CFO, thank you.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, that particular issue was only very recently brought to the city's attention. You will recall that we had a revaluation of GRVs in this current year. One of our non-residential ratepayers whose rates were significantly decreased this year went and approached Landgate to ask why that had happened. Landgate went away and investigated and discovered that one of their data input operators in 2020 erroneously entered a gross rental value for that particular property, which we recalculated would be a difference of about $55,000 per year. Landgate did not offer any apology or anything, just simply advised the city that we are responsible for refunding approximately $155,000 worth of rates over that 3-year period.
Okay.
A follow-up to that, is it possible to ask Landgate for a sample of, say, 50 other ratepayers to make sure they know what they're doing?
CFO?
Thank you very much, through the chair. I have so far expressed my disappointment to Landgate and have indicated, I've requested if it's possible to have a meeting with somebody in a senior role there, if not the Valuer General themselves, to try to get some assurances that this was a highly isolated instance. The only feedback I have had so far is they said they have a tolerance level, and this was below the tolerance level. So obviously the tolerance level is significant.
Follow up. Can we find out what that tolerance level is? Will they publish that? Is that public info?
I don't know if it's public information, but I'm more than happy to ask the question. But I'm joining the dots and assuming it's clearly in excess of $55,000 a year.
Wow, thank you. Councillor Gonsalves.
Is there any information about any existing auditing processes and why that might have slipped through?
Thank you. Through the chair, in terms of the city's rating processes, we're very confident they are absolutely rock solid. But as you will recall, one of the variables that's used in the rating process is the gross rental value supplied by Landgate. They do obviously make some efforts at quality control on it, but this one they have flagged as being an unusual circumstance. It was as they said, it's a data entry error, but I'd be quite honest, if I were responsible for it, I'd be wanting better checks than what they've offered.
Thanks, CFO. Councillor.
I'll just roll through a few others. They might need to be taken on notice.
Sure.
Page 183. Why does the Perth Concert Hall contribution sit under the CEO Alliance?
CEO.
To the CFO, please.
CFO.
Thank you. Through the chair, that particular annual contribution has always sat within the office of the CEO, predating the current CEO. And I believe it was really just because of a perceived political sensitivity around it.
Okay. Page 184, what are the change in working patterns referenced in the increasing costs for the communications team?
CFO?
Yes, please.
I may have to take that on notice.
Fine.
Thank you.
Page 185, legal services is listed as 0 across the board. Where have these been moved to and how can council look at our legal spend now?
CFO.
Thank you. Through the chair, the decision was taken that the legal services budget would be decentralised and distributed across each of the general managers' alliance office budgets. I met with each general manager. We reviewed their expectations of legal expense for matters that they reasonably anticipated for the 12 months. We established a budget and put that in place. It was actually lesser monetary value than had been the previous legal expenses budget.
So, and what is that for this financial year, please?
I will come back to you with the precise number, councillor, but are you talking external advice?
You know, what's your expectation of us spending on legal fees for the year? Like you've just said, across the GMs, what's the total pool?
I can come back with a precise number, but we're in the vicinity of 800 and something thousand.
And what was it before, when it was centralised under that?
Over different years, it's gone as high as 1.3.
That's fine, thank you. Page 185, marketing core service expenditure is out by 11.1% with no explanation as accompanies other variances. What's the cause here, please?
CFO.
Thank you. I'll take that one on notice because there could be a compounding series of facts.
Page 189, people and culture, 35% overrun on consultant expenditure with no explanation. Can I have an explanation, please?
General Manager of Corporate Services going to join us here. Yes, welcome. Everyone's had a go now.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I suspect I know what that one is, but I wouldn't mind taking it on notice. I suspect it's to do with recruitment.
On notice is fine. I know these are very late.
Thank you.
So, yep. Page 196, employee costs, 11.2% for sponsorships, citing increased resourcing to support growing number of programs. Does this mean we're getting agency staff or is there overtime? I just don't know what that means for that one.
Is that CFO or, CFO on notice?
Given the specifics of that question, I think it's probably best to take that on notice.
Sure. Okay.
Last one, page 210, incorrect billing adjustments, facilities maintenance. I don't know what that means. What happened? Is it being fixed? Is it going to happen again?
I'm still trying to get to 210.
CFO on notice?
on notice because I still haven't quite scrolled to the right page yet.
Okay.
It's all right.
On notice it is.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Councillor Fleeton. Councillors? Thank you. That was 15.2, correct? 15.3? That was 15.1. Now 15.2, schedule of accounts paid September 2023. No questions with notice, councillors? 15.3 is the Corporate Business Plan Quarterly Progress Report, July-September 2023. Councillors, anything? 15.4 is the Project Reprioritisation Budget Review. Anything? Councillor Gobbett.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. With reference to the previous item on tonight's agenda, would it be possible for council to consider a reduced amount allocated to the reserve to, instead of creating the full amount of the reserve, to dedicate that towards any of the deficiencies that have been put forward in terms of the funding amount requested for the funding rounds tonight?
The CFO.
Thank you. Through the chair, I would respectfully suggest that trying to adjust that through reserves is not the most effective way to do that. If council has a will to alter the recommended sponsorship contributions, once I know the quantum of that, I would come back with a recommended funding source for that, rather than trying to shuffle this report on the fly.
Okay, thank you. Councillors? Alrighty, 16.1, Chief Executive Officer reports, and 16.1 is 2024 Council and Committee meeting schedule. Do we have any questions from any councillors? We factor in school holidays? We have? Yes. Yeah? Yeah. We did. Any other questions? That wasn't really a question. Any other questions, councillors? Thank you. Let's go then to 16.2, City of Perth Inquiry Recommendations Quarterly Progress Update, Q1 23-24. That's the 1st of July until the 30th of September 2023. No questions with notice. Any now, councillors? Nope. 16.3 is adoption of the City of Perth Parking Amendment Local Law 2023. Councillors? 17 is committee reports. We don't have any tonight. 18 is motions of which notice has been given. They will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting next week, although I don't believe we have any. 19, matters for which the meeting may be closed. Item 19.1, 19.2 and 19.3 are designated confidential in accordance with sections 5.232C, 5.232A, 5.232D of the Local Government Act 1995. If any councillors have any questions relating to these items, we'll need to move behind closed doors and pause the live stream. So, firstly, councillors, I'll get an indication. Does any councillors do? Yes, Councillor Fleeton has. So, in that case, we're going to request that the live stream be paused. Very symbolic and important point. Thank you. Item 20 is urgent business. This will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting next week. Item 21 is closure. I'll just invite or remind my fellow councillors just to pop next door, please, for a brief briefing. It will be brief. And with that, no further business. I'm now going to declare the agenda briefing session closed at 7:08 p.m. and thank each and every one of you for your contributions. Thanks,
Would
everybody.
you all please rise for the Right Honourable the Lord Mayor of Perth, Mr Basil Zemmers.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.